now. I think that's recording. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we're live. So we're recording, so we'll be able to upload it later for those that want to review or those that weren't able to make this time slot. And I think that's, oh yeah, I wanted to also just share with you the outline. So I'm going to share screen, which is going to allow all of you to see the source sheet that we're going to be using. So this is the title, Pro Tips for Making Pesach Easier from your first to your 50th time with the two of us. And our mantra is that dirt is not chametz and children are not the Korban Pesach from Rav Shlomo Aviner. So that'll be our guiding mantra for the evening. And the three parts of the hour that we're going to spend together is there's going to be a halachic overview of the core concepts, a tour of our kitchen, and a Q&A. I'm excited for the tour of the kitchen. By doing this, you forced us to clean up our kitchen a little bit more, which is great. So thank you for that. Okay. Can I just get another thumbs up just to make sure everyone is hearing me okay? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? All right. Okay. Good. Awesome. Okay, we're going to go back to the screen share now, and I'm going to hand things over to Sarah for a bit.
Okay, so if the goal for the evening is to simplify what could be a very overwhelming process, especially if it's your first time doing it. So I'll start by sharing one idea that I think is important to keep in mind with this whole thing is when we say at the Pesach Seder, when the Rasha asks the question, Ma ha'avodah hazot lachem? Like, what is this service? What does this work to you? So we usually think about that as being the Seder, the Korban Pesach, but Rabbi Avraham Elimelech Bitterman gives a nice interpretation that the avodah is actually the preparation for the Seder. And when the child sees their parents complaining the whole time, this is so difficult, this is so annoying, kids yelling at their children, get away from me with that cracker, what are you doing? Pesach is coming. It makes it such a stressful process for the children. That's the Rasha saying, what is this all for? Why are you going crazy over this? And why are you turning into a mean person over this? So we want to avoid that. And part of that comes by differentiating between Pesach cleaning and spring cleaning. So for Pesach cleaning, we're going to focus on chametz, removing chametz, and not on organizing your closets, going through all your children's clothes and getting out things that don't fit them anymore, organizing the toys and going through your files and your papers. That's not what we're doing here. We're talking about just what you have to do to get rid of chametz in your house. Okay, so we'll start now with a halachic overview, and I'll hand things back to Noah.
Okay, great. So just one more piece of introduction about that attitude is a small thing that can make a really big difference on this. So hopefully we can see everyone being home because of the situation that we're in, not just as a challenge, of which it certainly is, but one of the silver linings is that there's more free labor. There's a great meme that someone shared with us recently, thoughts and prayers going out to all those married men who have spent months telling their wives, I'll do that when I have time. So maybe there's now more time at home and more husbands can be put to work with more things, and more children can also be put to work with more tasks. So with that in mind, we're going to transition now to learn a few of the relevant halachot for this process of cleaning the house and cleaning the kitchen. I'm going to do a screen share. Awesome. Okay. So hopefully you can see in front of you the screen that I showed earlier about the three sections, and we're going to begin with a halachic overview. So the first question is, how much chametz is a problem? So the Gemara in Masechet Beitza on Daf Zayin quotes from the pasuk of V'lo yera elacha. I'll read in Hebrew and translate into English. So Tanya Nami Hachi. So the Breita teaches that lo yera elacha, you should not see. This is one of the 5 prohibitions against chametz. Chametz is a very serious isur, very serious prohibition. And one of the prohibitions is that you can't see it, you can't find it on Pesach, which is why we have so many different ways of dealing with chametz, from the mechirat chametz to the bitul chametz, the bedikat chametz, because we want to cover all of our bases, sort of a belt and suspenders approach. So the question is, how much does one have to see in order to violate this prohibition of not seeing chametz on Pesach? So zeh machloket sheben Beit Shammai u Beit Hillel. It's a dispute. Shebeit Shammai yomrim seor shebekazait, seor bekazait bechametz bekotevet. Right, that the seor, which is the leaven product, right, the dough that causes fermentation. So that amount, Beit Hillel says, you can't see after the volume of a kazait, roughly 30 grams. The chametz bekotevet, a large date. So chametz, we would say, is the already risen bread product, like a piece of bread. So that's a larger amount. To Beit Hillel means zeb kazait. But Beit Hillel says that both the seor and the chametz are prohibited for only above a kazait, meaning to say that you can't eat any chametz on Pesach. However, you are allowed to have chametz in your home that you don't know about because your kids stuck it in various holes and couch, cushions, etc. That is less than a kazait. Defining a kazait, I said 30 grams. It's roughly an ounce, which is about less than a full shot glass. I think a shot glass is an ounce and a half. So that's in terms of visualizing. If there's a Cheerio here and there, that is not a problem in terms of violating the Isser Chametz. It is a problem if your kid finds it and then gives it to you and you mistakenly eat it, or your kid eats it, which could happen. But just having that in your possession on Pesach is not going to be a problem. In terms of what state that amount of chametz needs to be in order for one to violate the Isra of chametz, the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Taf Mem Bet that hapat atzma she'ifsha v'nifsala mila'achol kelev. So any kind of bread or chametz which has gone bad and is no longer edible to a dog, then or melugma shenisracha, or something that has spoiled, right? That's kind of like a porridge that has spoiled. Eino chayev leva'er. There's no obligation to destroy it. The tashbitu seor mebatechem, a requirement to rid ourselves of chametz, does not apply if the chametz is so hardened that a dog would pass by and not even eat it. So the conclusion from this section is that more than 30 grams of edible chametz is a problem, but less than 30 grams of non-edible chametz is not going to be a problem. Okay, so that helps address some of the crumbs and Cheerios that we might find. If it's less than 30 grams or it's not edible, it's not a violation of chametz. Okay, moving along to the next primary topic within the halachot that are pertinent to this topic, in terms of which places need to be checked and cleaned. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Taf Lamed Gimel, Bodek kol hamakomot sheyesh lachush shema hichnisu bahem chametz. That we are required to check any place where we might have brought a snack. V'lachein kol chadrei habayit va'aliyot tzrichim b'dika. And therefore, any of the regular used rooms of a house that are used for eating need to be checked. Shepamim adam nichnas behem upito biyado, because sometimes you might go to the TV room, even to a bedroom, with something in your hand, a piece falls off, it gets kicked under a shelf, under a bed, and you don't notice it, so you have to do b'dika there. Aval otzrot yayin she'ein mistapek behem, but all of us who have wine cellars in our basement, which is a very common thing in Sharon, we don't have to check there. V'chein miteben v'kiyotze bo, in all of our grain storehouses, we don't have to check there either. Again, assuming this is grain which is not processed, so it's not chametz yet. Einam tzrichim b'dika. So this just gets a little bit back to what Sarah was saying a moment ago about the difference between spring cleaning and Pesach cleaning. If we are checking, the crawl space in our attic, in our garage, if we are, checking if we're cleaning every window, that's not Pesach cleaning. Those aren't places that the average family brings chametz to. Of course, all bets are off if you have a child like we do, who might bring chametz everywhere and anywhere at any given time. So if you have a little toddler, the Gemara actually speaks explicitly about having toddlers, that you really do have to check every place that a toddler can reach. But again, a crawl space in a basement and a garage are not in play, and so one does not have to check there.
So you can just check without organizing what you're checking. Like, the toilet room's still a mess, but we'll just look at every bin quickly. There's no chametz in there. Move on.
Right. So yesterday we went through our kids' bedrooms by rummaging around all of their toy carts, not cleaning anything or putting anything away, but just seeing that there weren't any Snickers bars or pretzels or Chewy bars. Of course, we did find a few of those. Okay.
It was with your kids' backpacks, so make sure there's no snacks in those.
Yeah, and winter coats as well. You probably haven't put them away because we had a snowstorm just this afternoon, which was crazy. But oftentimes we forget to check the winter coats and end up finding some chametz there as well. Okay, so the last and third, the third and last topic in terms of the halachic overview has to do with how to purge your kitchen of chametz. So here we're going to just introduce two halachic principles that will be in play once we get to the tour of our kitchen. The first one has to do with ta'am ki'ikar. It's a principle in all food-related halachot and kashrut in general. And the source of it, or one of the instances in where it's explicitly mentioned in the Torah, in the Gemara, has to do with the isur of a nazir, of somebody who can't have any wine product. And so the Gemara in Masechet Pesachim says, "V'hai mishra lahachi hu da'ata." You can follow along with my mouse here. So they were soaking grapes in water, and what's the consequence of that? Because this is of consequence in the following scenario: Misharet litan ta'am ki'ikar. That if it is soaked and it creates flavor for these are whole grapes that are put in water. If it creates any kind of flavor, then the Nazir is going to be chayav for drinking that, because it has some kind of it has some product of grape in it. Okay, so mikan atadan l'chol haTorah kula. From here we extend to the entire Torah that this klal, this principle of tam ki'ikar, which means that absorbed taste and taste particles are considered as if they are the food itself. And so if a pot is sparkling clean and it's been washed with soap, it still can be considered fleishik if there was a soup that was boiling in that pot recently, right? Certainly in the last 24 hours, where we assume that taste particles are still active, that pot is considered fleishik, even though there doesn't seem to be any food on it because it's sparkling clean. The fact that the taste particles are absorbed into the walls of the pot makes it fleishik, right? And that's so much of that is what drives so much of the laws of kashrut, and why we have separate dishes and separate silverware, not why we have separate dish racks. There's absolutely no need for that. But that's a rant for another time. So the reason why that's significant for chametz is because the chametz, which is absorbed into our countertops, into our sinks and our ovens, right? That's considered tam. Even after we've cleaned it and it's no longer visible, it's still present and it's still halachically significant. And so we have to rid our kitchen appliances and our utensils of that ta'am, because the ta'am is halachically meaningful because of this principle of ta'am ki'ikar. So how is it exactly that we are meant to purge the taste of chametz out of our utensils. So in Parshat Matot, Moshe is going through the spoils of war that were accumulated from the war with Midian at the beginning of Kibush Haaretz, or leading up to the formal process at least. And Moshe says that you can take the pots and the pans of the Midyanim. However, this is what you have to do with it before using it. Kol davar asher yavo ba'esh ta'avira ba'esh. Anything which was used for food directly on the fire, like a grill, for instance, you need to pass it through fire. We'll skip over this clause for a moment because it will just distract us. And then the last part of the pasuk, b'chol asher lo yavo ba'esh ta'avir b'mayim, and anything which has not been heated up in contact with food through direct fire, but rather through hot liquid, like boiling something in a pot, only needs to be purged of the taste that had been in that pot through water. Okay, so based on this pasuk, we have the principle in Masechet Pesachim. I think this is on Lamed Amud Bet. I forgot to put the daf there. Amar Rav Huna Berei de Rabbi Yeshua. Eitz Peror. So this is a wooden spoon. How do you kasher a wooden spoon? Magilo berotchin. You dunk it into boiling water. Ubekli rishon kasavar kibolo kach polto. And you have to put it in a utensil that is on the fire, because kibolo kach polto. Because just like the way that the taste was absorbed, so too that's how the taste is going to be purged. The same cooking method and level of heat that caused, here I'm reading in the English translation, thank you Steinsaltz, the same cooking method and level of heat that caused the substance, that caused the flavor of the forbidden substance to be absorbed in the vessel, suffices to discharge the flavor of the substance from the vessel. Therefore, a ladle that absorbed flavor of leavened bread from a pot of boiling water, which was over a fire, will discharge the flavor of leavened bread once it is placed in the boiling water again. So that's the principle of kibolo kach polto. And so when we get to the kitchen, we're going to have to ask ourselves, how was this appliance, how is this dish, how is this surface used? And the same way that it was used is the same way that we need to clean it to rid it of the ta'am chametz, which was bolea, which was absorbed into it. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share for a minute to check the chat box to see if there are any questions yet. So far, no questions, but I'm delighted to see that there are 33 participants. Okay, see the gallery. Okay, that's wonderful. Strong group here. Okay, so we're going to transition now to the fun part of the evening, which is putting some of these halachic principles into practice by going into our kitchen and demonstrating how we are going to get our kitchen ready for Pesach. Okay, ready, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to transition to the phone here. This. Hold on a second. Oop. Okay. I hope everyone can hear. Okay, we transition now to our phone. I think we might be muted here. This is muted now. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me on my phone. All right. Great. Okay, good. So you can see our favorite snack there is Twizzlers. Little side note, we on our first date in the library, we both brought a snack, and it was Twizzlers. That's how we knew it was meant to be. Okay, so going into our kitchen over here, and we're going to go through our kitchen through the list of items that I mentioned in the outline. The first thing is our kitchen cabinets. Okay, Sarah.
Okay, so I started to show you what I do. So I took out all of the homemade stuff. I picked like one cabinet in the kitchen that I'll designate as my Pesach stuff. And I took everything out that was homemade. And some things that were kosher for Pesach I would keep. If I happened to have balsamic vinegar, like that was unopened, or red wine vinegar that was unopened, or hearts of palm that was kosher for Pesach, I would keep those and put those aside. And then I spray the bottom of the cabinet with like a cleaner, wipe it down paper towel, and line it with like a shelving liner. This I got from Costco.
There is no need to line the cabinets with anything as long as they're wiped down and clean. Just because of what we learned a moment ago of kibolo kach polto, the way to clean something is the same way that chametz went into it. Most people don't have heated cabinets, which means that you don't have to purge it of anything or cover it for any reason. So long as you can get all of the chametz to, if you can remove all of the hardened chametz from your cabinets, a spray is sufficient. A spray and a wipe is sufficient.
I just think it's easier to line it. So when I clean the next year, I just remove that liner, and that is pretty clean. So I can just don't have to clean that much for the following year. I put a new liner down, and then next year I'll take that out. So
okay.
Just a tip that I think is helpful, if not necessary.
First of many times where there's a difference between the halachic calculus and real life. Okay. And Sarah, can you show me what needs to be done for a cabinet that one is not using for Pesach? Can you take the tape over there?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say I have this cabinet down here that holds my fleshik pots in hand, which I don't put food in. I will check and make sure Ezra did not stick food in there for some reason. And then I will just tape it up.
A pro tip is use painter's tape. Okay. Painter's tape will ensure that your cabinets are not ruined after Pesach. And all you need to do is tape them up. There's no need to remove everything or to lock them. As long as your kids won't be getting into it, or there's a reminder, some kind of heker, a sign that it is off limits, that is sufficient for cabinets. Okay. Countertops. Okay. So the next item is countertops. And we have to ask ourselves again, how was the taste absorbed? So most people don't, cook or even cut things directly on the countertop, but instead they use a cutting board or a plate. And on occasion, what happens is something falls from a pot or from a plate onto the countertop, and it might be hot. So kibolo kach polto, in the same way that it was that the taste entered in, is the same way that it's going to be absorbed. So something fell onto it, and usually it is something that has some kind of liquid or some kind of moisture to it. And so the way to extract the taste is by pouring something hot that will purge the countertops.
If it's granite or stone.
Right. So important caveat there is that the material of the countertop is significant. If it's marble or granite or stone, or what we have is quartz, then it is something which can be purged. Certain countertops like plastic cannot be easily purged, and therefore they need to be covered. There's a full list of what materials can be koshered and what materials cannot be koshered in the OU, CRC, Star K, Pesach books. We gave out a bunch of OU Pesach guides in our before the show was shut down, and I'll be sending out links to download all of them. They have a long list going through all the different counter materials to say which ones can be koshered and which ones cannot be koshered.
I used to cover it. Other houses covered it with contact paper. I found that was pretty easy to use.
So you'll see here that there's a blue piece of tape. Why is that piece of tape there? Because before koshering, it is important to clean the surface of the countertop to make sure there's actually no chametz be'en, which means actual
chametz that is right, not just absorbed taste, but actual chametz that's on the surface, and that we wait 24 hours. This is a critical piece here before koshering. The reason we wait 24 hours is because I mentioned before about the halachic principle. Oh, okay. We'll switch the camera, Sarah says. Okay. You get to see my face instead of the pretty countertop. Okay. So because of the principle of Kabbalah, of Tam Ki Ikar, that the halachic taste of something is as if it's the thing itself, that principle on a biblical level only applies for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it's considered to be pagum. It's considered to be like putrid smell. It's not actively contributing to anything. And therefore, the taste from a biblical level is insignificant after 24 hours. However, on a rabbinic level, we say, Gazar ben yomo atu eno ben yomo, that it's hard to keep a clock or track of everything in our kitchen, what's been used for the last 24 hours and what hasn't. And so we still consider the taste that's absorbed in something after 24 hours to be significant on a rabbinic level. But on a biblical level, it's insignificant. And so we try to wait, or we do wait that time period when we kosher things. And we wait that for all kinds of koshering. There are different methods of koshering. There are 5 methods. We wait it for all except for libun chamor, which we'll get to when we talk about how to kosher the oven. Or if we're doing hagala, which is dunking something in boiling water, or if we're doing iloi rotchin, which is pouring water, which is what we're going to do, pour boiling water, which is what we're going to do on the countertops. Or if we're doing libun kal, or miloi the iroi, those methods of koshering do require the 24-hour waiting period after cleaning before koshering. Okay, so now we're going to actually show how we kosher.
You can put stuff on the countertop, just no hot food on them.
Correct. So if
after you clean them,
right. So some people like to do this maybe on Shabbos or something when people aren't putting hot things down on the countertop, so that the 24-hour clock isn't broken. Okay. So Sarah, do you want to hold this and I'll do the
Yeah.
Okay. So let me show. First of all, I'll show you over here our very clean kitchen. Of course, close your eyes. So this is what we use to kosher. And this is a water urn that boils up, and the water needs to be of temperature where is malei ababuot is the term that's used, which means that it is bubbling, sort of an onomatopoeia there. The water has to be actively boiling when it's being poured on. So the good thing about this is it can be plugged in while you're pouring, so that it remains actively hot. If you have a pot that you're boiling on the stovetop, in order to create water to use for koshering the countertop, it can stop bubbling, and then the water isn't going to be hot enough anymore. It needs to be actively bubbling in order for it to be hot enough to be kosher. So using this apparatus is helpful because you can keep it plugged in, so it keeps it very hot. So we'll take this off. And it's also important to kosher this before using it for koshering. It's pretty much self-koshering. You just have to fill it up once, and you clean off the surface and let it go to the tippity top and let it boil over a little bit, and that koshers the entire device. If you don't have something like this, then you can use an old-fashioned pot. And as long as you wait until it gets to an immediate boil and then use it right away, there is still going to be some bubbles that are circulating, because it's still going to be boiling even though it's not boiling like it was when it's on the flame. Okay. So for the countertop, here, do you want to hold this? Okay. It's important to not wear open-toed sandals like I am right now, because the water can be very hot and it's likely going to fall off the countertop. When you're doing the koshering, you want to pour the water over the entire surface area of the countertop, right? Such that you are hitting every square inch. If you see what I'm doing here, right? I'm going along And even though some of the water is going beyond where the pouring hits the countertop, you want there to be the pouring part, which is where it's going to be the hottest, to be able to go over the majority of the area of the countertop. So just in the immediate vicinity of where the pour hits the countertop is where it's going to be hottest. If I pour all over here and just let it go that way, by the time it gets over here, it's not going to be hot enough. So we need to be careful to ensure that we are hitting all the surface area with hot water by having the boiling spout go over the most of the area of the countertop. And it also needs to go over the edges. And once you've completed this, your countertop is kosher for Pesach.
You want to hold like towels under here so you don't get water inside your cabinets.
Yeah, that's a practical pro tip. Not a good idea to damage your nice cabinets. Okay, so we're going to take questions on all these things later, finish going through some of the kitchen appliances, and then we'll sit down again at the table and take questions. Okay, let me just look at my notes here to see if there was anything else I missed about countertops. I think that was it. Okay, so now we'll move on to sink. So sink is similar to countertop in that the only way that it absorbs hot chametz is through moisture or through a liquid medium. And so you also need to clean off the surface of the sink such that there's no hardened pasta or bread. And that also includes sometimes the sink insert or the drain, right? There's a little bit of an accordion over here. This needs to be cleaned out very well. I did not do this ahead of time, so it doesn't look that clean yet, but it will be when we actually do the koshering for real. And so this needs to be very clean. And then you want to use the same thing that I did in the counter. You want to pour.
Let it sit for 24 hours.
You want to let it sit for 24 hours. Thank you. And then,
you can put cold like water in the sink or something like that, but not hot foods in the sink for 24 hours.
Yeah, and don't let food or other
sit
things sit there because the surface needs to be clear. But if somebody turns on the
accidentally
sink,
put water, like if you can wash your hands in the sink, that kind of thing.
Yeah, as long as it's cold.
Yeah.
And then you pour, and you want to pour along the edges. You can sort of get in there, Sarah, and you can show. All right, you want to pour along the edges to make sure that you're getting the entire area of the edge of the sink, and then you want to go carefully, along the sink. You want to take out the insert and do the insert separately, right? And you should obviously be very careful while doing this and using hot water. This water is no longer that hot, but you would want to wear some kind of protective gear on your hand so that you don't burn yourself. Now is not a good time to be going to the emergency room. Okay, that was a bad joke. So that takes care of the sink. The next piece on the list is the stovetop. Okay, fun. So there are 3 different kinds of stovetops. There is the electric stovetop, the gas stovetop, and the glass stovetop. So we're going to go through each of those different types of stovetops. So we'll start with the gas because that's actually what we have here. And the gas stovetop usually has these metal racks or that are, what do you call
Grates.
Grates, thank you. So you'll see these are a little bit dirty right now. So these really need to be scrubbed with steel wool so that there isn't any actual chametz that's on it. Once it's cleaned with steel wool, then there are 2 options for koshering. Either you can put it inside your oven to experience self-cleaning oven. That would be libun gamor, in which some things can become red hot. The other way of doing it for the grates is to put the flame on the gas stove for 15 minutes with a pot that extends over the entire surface area of the grate. That way the heat is spreading. You can use any kind of pot for it because we say that taste doesn't go between materials without there being a liquid medium. So any kind of, even if it's a chametz pot, as long as the bottom of the pot is clean and the top of the grate is clean, if you put it on and leave the gas on high for 15 minutes, then you can kosher the grate. I suggest not doing all grates at the same time because that's a fire hazard, but go grate by grate, and that's how you can kosher the grates. In terms of the, what's this called, underneath the grates?
Stovetop.
The stovetop, that you'd want to kosher, it's hard to kosher that, so we cover it with tin foil. As you can
just
see.
make sure when you're not covering like
where
like
the gas
comes out. Like make sure that could be dangerous. So just be very careful about that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the gas stovetop. The electric stovetop that has the coils, you want to put the coils on high also for 15 minutes, and there's no need there to put a pot on each one because there the electric coil, the entire thing gets hot. But in between the coils on the stovetop, you also want to cover it with, with tin foil. And the glass stovetop, which has certainly become more popular recently, can also be koshered by turning it on the highest temperature for 15 minutes. And you want to also use the bottom of a large pot in order to spread the heat over the entire area where you might be using a pot on Pesach. Because the area beyond the immediate burner in the glass stovetop has no way of getting hot. And there's no good way to kosher that. So the best way to do it is to extend the heat by using the bottom of a flat pot. In terms of the space between the burners on a glass stovetop, don't cover that with foil because it sticks to it and can really damage the stovetop. The best thing to do is to put some kind of trivet there or something to remind you that if something falls on that glass stovetop, it's a piece of, I don't know, I was about to say macaroni, but hopefully you're not eating that.
Broccoli.
A piece of broccoli, right? You don't just eat the broccoli, you don't put it back in the pot because that area can't easily be koshered between the actual burners. Okay, let me just look at my list to see if I missed anything on that. A good just pro tip is to put on the vent while you're doing all this activity because it helps with all of the heat and the fumes that can be generated if there's any cleaning supplies that you use to clean it off. When it's being burned off, the vents can be very helpful. Okay, let's do a time check. What time is it?
8:11.
Okay, so we're gonna hurry up here because by 8:20, I want to make sure we're sitting down for questions. Okay, so for the oven, this is a gas oven over here, and this is used through dry heat. So kibolo kach polto. The same way that the taste went in is the way that it goes out. So we extract the ta'am through dry heat. So the best way to do it is through libun chamor, which I mentioned before, is the way of just burning out everything by getting to like 800 plus degrees. That can be achieved through self-cleaning oven, which you don't have to wait 24 hours before doing. You can just burn everything out by putting on a self-cleaning oven. However, if you don't have a self-cleaning oven, like we do not, so we use libun kal, which is the hottest temperature that the oven can get at. Once it reaches that hottest temperature for an hour. But before using libun kal, you need to clean out the oven well, which again requires you to clean behind these this little rubber accordion-like strip around the perimeter of the oven, and also the top, the ceiling of the oven. We often don't notice it because we're not looking at it, but it often has a lot of residue from things that might be popping up there. And so a good scrub needs to be done on on the interior of the oven and the oven racks. And then you can leave the oven on its highest temperature for an hour, and that achieves libun kal.
The racks.
So the racks, if they're in there, they should be scrubbed beforehand so that there's no actual chametz particles on it. But
once they are in for the libun kal hour, then they are good to go, and they do not need to be covered with aluminum foil. Okay, there are some self-cleaning ovens that use this aqua lift, I think it's called, which is like a lower temperature, and that is not sufficient for cleaning, for purging chametz out of an oven. One would need to use the libun kal approach. Okay, 6 is the microwave. Okay, so for a microwave, how does the taste get absorbed in a microwave? It works through steam, through zeya, by heating up the water. So in the same way that the taste goes into the walls is the way that it needs to be taken out, which means that we need to fill up the microwave with steam. How is that achieved? It's achieved by putting in a microwave-friendly cup, a styrofoam cup or something, with water, and letting the water boil out. Maybe that will take 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on your microwave. You can pay attention to it. And you also beforehand want to clean out the surfaces, the top, the bottom, the door, also the area around the side of the door, to make sure that that is clean. And again, leave it for 24 hours, and then you can do the koshering. It's important to take out the glass plate, because the glass plate cannot be sufficiently kosher. And so on Pesach, you can operate the microwave without the glass plate. If you need something that turns, you can get a 1/4 inch styrofoam piece that you can put on there, which will work in the microwave for that week.
And when you do the cup, you have to do it twice, because you have to, wherever the cup was sitting didn't get koshered, so you have to kind of move the cup over and then let the steam hit that spot where the cup was sitting, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The next piece is the dishwasher, which we're not going to say much about, because dishwashers take a lot of work to kosher for Pesach, and usually for 8 days it's not worth it. If you have the time and the effort and you have the need for the dishwasher, I can send you instructions, but it takes a lot of elbow grease to get it done. A lot of that's probably the hardest thing to do in terms of time and effort. So I'm not going to take up too much time to do it right now. Okay. So I'm just sort of looking at the kitchen appliances that we have here right now. I saw we got a question about this in the Q&A, about how to kosher a Keurig. So many of us have Keurigs or coffee machines. So this is our Keurig cup, which again, you should get a different Keurig cup for Pesach if you use flavored coffees, but all ground, caffeinated coffee does not need a kosher for Pesach. But in order to kosher the Keurig machine, you should take out the thing which holds the K-cup, and you can do hagala on this. You can put this right after waiting 24 hours. You can dunk this in a pot of boiling water. You should also clean out the area of the Keurig over here, wipe it down. And this is really the only part that has the boiling hot water, which would require you to do the hagala upon. In terms of a water urn, so water urns, depends how you use it during the year. If you have your oatmeal and you put it up to the spout, and the spout gets dirty with oatmeal, and then you have to kosher it for Pesach by really cleaning it out and by pouring hot water all over, if not submerging the spout, in order to purge it of the taste in the way that it was absorbed.
If you don't. If you just use it for tea.
If you just use it for tea or for coffee, then you just need to wipe it down, because it's really a self-koshering device, and that there's always hot water coming out of it. But just sometimes if you have a bowl of oatmeal underneath it, the steam from the oatmeal can come up and affect the outside of the faucet. Okay, I think that's
toaster oven. We don't kosher for Pesach.
It's just too hard to do. There's too much in a small space to actually clean it sufficiently. Yeah. Okay. Let's go sit down in the.
We also put our mixer away. Our KitchenAid. We don't use that for Pesach. We don't kosher that.
Okay. Okay, we're back. And I'll make sure everyone can hear us. Thumbs up if you can hear us. All right. Okay. So we're gonna take some question and answers. So I'm gonna first gonna go through the chat here to go through the questions and give answers to them. So the first is Twizzlers. Way to be getting rid of chametz. Okay. Sometimes my kids make stop signs to put on the chametz cabinets to help us remember not to go there. Can this demo be in my kitchen next year? Okay. Would a clothing steamer work for that as well for a less wet approach? So this is a great question. And most steamers do not get hot enough in order to kosher a countertop. They used to make steamers that would work that way, but a clothing steamer does not. The commercial ones do, but all of the ones on the market that I've tried, and I know Rabbi Sender also told me that he had looked into several, don't produce steam that's hot enough and wet enough in order to kosher a countertop. But that would be a good business idea. Okay, can we sell this zichut at the Simchat Torah auction? I don't know what that's referring to. Okay, I've heard that running the self-cleaning with something on the racks will ruin the racks. It depends on the racks and what's on them. You have to read the manual of your oven before using the self-clean option because it could cause damage, and there are horror stories.
There's a lot of people whose ovens get ruined from self-cleaning it.
2 days before Pesach, which is also a good reason why it's good to take out a calendar and do this ahead of time in case you need to buy a new oven. But read the manual so that you know what you're doing.
Don't leave the house because I've heard stories of it catching on fire.
Yeah. Does the same glass approach apply for induction? The area between the burners can't be kosher with boiling water since it is not exposed to the heat itself directly. I didn't follow that question. I might have to get back to you, Yoni, about the specifics of that. Or Yoni, do you want to? I'll unmute you. Yoni, you're unmuted.
It was 2 separate questions, but since you couldn't see them happening in time, it came out as one. Do you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Start again.
I said it was 2 separate questions, but it probably came out as one because you couldn't hear them at the same time. But the first question was, you talked about gas, about electric, and about glass, which I assume you meant glass electric. What about induction? What about kosher induction cooktops?
I assume it's this. It works. I assume it's the same way, but I've got to get back to you on that. I have to look into how induction heat works, but the same principle of kibolo kachpoto should work in terms of heating it up to its highest temperature, and that would purge it of its taste.
So Rabbi Cheses, the idea of induction stoves is that they actually heat the pot without the stove itself necessarily getting hot. So it's only getting hot from the pot itself that's above it heating up.
Okay, that's a very helpful clarification. And I'll have to look into that more. I wonder if just doing irui rotchin, pouring boiling water on it, would suffice. That might be the best option. But I'll get back to you about that. Thank you, Aryeh.
Okay. I think it's just it's science challenging halacha to keep up. So.
And what's the second question, Yoni?
Well, that might answer the second question for me anyway, but for people who have regular glass stovetops, couldn't you, assuming the glass could withstand it, couldn't you kosher the area between the burners by pouring boiling water on it? Since
the challenge with that, that's definitely better than nothing, but it usually uses dry heat, not liquid heat. Right, it absorbs. It sometimes will have things that fall in it that are. There probably will be moisture some of the time, but it might also be something dry that's connected to it.
Okay.
So, but I think using boiling water would be a good way but I would still not eat something that fell on that area in between the glass burners. Okay, next question is, if you only ever use unflavored caffeinated K-cups and need to kasher the Keurig? No. Is there a need to clean the kitchen aid if you are selling it? No, because of what we spoke about in the first halachic principle, which is that any food which is less than any chametz which is less than a kazait is not a problem on Pesach. And most scraps on a kitchen aid would be less than that 30 gram. What about using an iron with steam? For your countertops, I'm not sure. It could damage the countertops and or the iron. And I don't know if there is sufficient coverage for of the steam or using the steam for the countertop. So I'd have to look into that more. Is there a difference with koshering if you are Sephardi? No, the same principles that I outlined are from the Shulchan Aruch, from the Machaber, and apply equally to Sephardim and Ashkenazim. If we can kosher the countertop, why do we have to put foil on the countertop? So there's no need to put foil on the countertop. The foil,
it's a material that can be koshered.
yeah. The foil was just for the stovetop. The next question is, if your oven has self-clean, you can just use the hottest heat for an hour instead. The answer to your question, Debbie, is yes, but you're going to have to clean, if you want to use the hottest heat for an hour, you still have to do the cleaning yourself and wait 24 hours before koshering it. What's this? Do you need to clean the oven racks if your oven is a self-cleaning one? No, you don't need to. But it's probably a good idea, because I would wipe them down. If there are large chunks of stuff, it just creates a lot more smoke and ash when the stuff burns off of it. So it's best not to have lots of gunk on the sides of your oven, even if you're going to, or the racks, even if you're going to use the self-cleaning option. Can you kosher an electric hot plate? Good question. So like a plata, yes, and it's the same principle of kabolo kachpoto. If you can put the hot plate on,
Clean it first of all.
Clean it first, wait 24 hours, and then leave it on. Usually most of them just have an on-off switch. So leave it on, for an hour or two, which is the hottest it'll ever get, and then you can use it on
Cover it.
We also cover it. Ours got a little bit dirty, which
no, I clean it. We let it burn for an hour, and then I cover it with 2 layers of foil afterwards.
Okay.
Just to be safe.
Okay. And hot water urn, you can also kosher as long as the spout is kosherable. If you used it for anything chametz. Okay. I'm going to go through, I got several questions ahead of time that I'm going to try to go through in the next 5 minutes. And then I'm happy to take more questions by email or phone. Okay, I'm sharing. And these are the questions that I got ahead of time that I'm going to run through now. We covered a bunch of them already. Okay, so how to kosher a Keurig? Check. How to kosher hot water urn? Check. How to kosher glass stovetop? Check. How to kosher stainless steel sink? Check. How to kosher granite countertops? Check. What can or can't be koshered? What do you remember about that, Sarah?
So I say you can kosher metal silverware, metal pots and pans, nothing with like Teflon non-stick stuff, but anything that's metal you can kosher if you don't want to buy new pots and pans for Pesach. Kiddush cups, you can kosher, you could kosher those. Or hard plastic you can kosher as well, not soft plastic. And the rest we already spoke about that we don't kosher.
Great. Do you want to do the next one too? But parchment paper?
Yes, we do. You should get special kosher Pesach parchment paper. The Costco brand all year round that they have is kosher for Pesach. That's what I usually get. There's a lot of parchment paper. but they also have, other brands and other stores, either particularly Jewish ones or not, that will say kosher Pesach on them as well.
Okay. Disposable gloves do not need a hashgacha for Pesach. Do you want to say about dish towels?
Yeah, you don't need to kosher, you don't need separate dish towels and separate tablecloths. You should just make sure they're clean, wash them in the washing machine so there's no chametz on them and you can use them. For pot holders, I would get new pot holders because that's really that could directly touch the food, and sometimes food gets stuck on it and you can't clean it as well as you should for Pesach.
Okay. I found a package of kosher Pesach tea in my cabinet that's no longer sealed, but each tea bag is packaged in paper. Can I use them on Pesach? As long as the cabinet was generally clean and it wasn't a cabinet that was full of pretzels and that might have gotten under that package, underneath that the individual paper packaging, then you should be fine to use those tea bags on Pesach. Do I need to buy milk before Pesach? Ideally, yes. And I know right now there's a shortage, or not a shortage, but they're limiting in the stores of how much milk and how much eggs you can buy. I was just at Costco this morning. But the limit was you can buy 5 gallons of milk. The reason for buying milk before Pesach is because they're fortified with certain vitamins that have a trace of chametz in them. And we rely on bittul v'shishim for chametz before Pesach as long as it's owned by a Jew. Usually Stop and Shop and Shaw's do a Pesach run of milk that you can buy on Pesach itself, which doesn't have that fortified calcium with the trace of chametz, but it'll say.
It doesn't say it on the main label, but where it says the date, like in black printed writing, it will say for Passover or OUP or something like that. So if you can buy that on Pesach itself.
Right. Do I need to buy eggs before Pesach? No. There was once a time, it's a fascinating history of why that was. They used to print the dates of the eggs on the eggs, but you can buy eggs in a store on Pesach, no problem. Can I use a year-round glass pitcher which has only been used for water but has been washed with a fleshik brush? It's best not to use glass pitchers that were washed together with chametz on Pesach itself. If you want to kosher glass for Pesach, like glass, or pitchers, that's the method, the fifth method of koshering, which is milui the which is to soak them in cold water for 3 24-hour periods, switching the water at each 24-hour interval. That is a method of koshering glasses, so you can use them for Pesach as well. Okay, we're already over our time. I'm gonna check the fridge. We didn't cover fridge. What do you do for fridge, honey?
I clean out the fridge. I'll spray it with a cleaning spray and wipe it down. And then as making sure there's no chametz. Again, I think it depends how your fridge is usually handled, but usually there's not like real chametz, all over the fridge. I clean it down and it's all cold, so you don't need to cover it. Sometimes as I'm like in the process of going through transitioning from chametz to Pesach, I'll designate certain shelves in the refrigerator that are for Pesach, and I'll lay paper towel on the bottom of that shelf, so I know that's my Pesach shelf, and I'll keep it there. But it's, if the food gets off the paper towel, as long as I wiped it down, it's fine.
Okay. I'm going to unmute everybody. We'll see how this goes. And if there are questions or clarifications, we can spend just 2 minutes doing that. Otherwise, this might be the most important thing I say. The CRC, OU, Star K, Pesach guidelines are great, and a lot of information can be found there. But Sarah and I are here to help and to provide any guidance. And we sincerely hope that this was an informative hour, and that this will help us all celebrate Pesach with a lot of simcha, with a lot of joy, and a lot of cleanliness. Okay.
If you need ideas for recipes and things like that, I'm happy to be helpful. Again, I think the best things to cook are things you already can eat that are fine for Pesach. And instead of trying to replace things and substitute things, just think about the foods you already cook that don't need much substitutions are always the easiest, and keep things simple.
Okay, I'm going to unmute all, and if you have any question, you can try to get it in.
Thank you.
Okay.
No. How do I leave?
Okay, it doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. Someone appreciated the upiocha we had in the background. Okay, well, Lila Tov to all. Wishing everyone a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. To learning together again soon.
Good night.
It's about locking stuff.